Alright, what's up? Just gotta make sure that this is recording. Yes, it is. Alright, so I was being kind of stupid the last time I tried to make this because F12 does something in Blender, but F12 also starts and stops my screen recorder. Genius, right? So, this is going to be a Blender's Basics tutorial for Blender 2.7. There's probably a couple of these already, but I'm just gonna make my own just because I have nothing better to do, and my last video on this channel was 5 months ago, or 6. So yeah, okay. So so when you first open up Blender, you're gonna see something like this. Here we've got your file stuff. You got your stuffs, more stuff. Just kidding. This is the 3D viewport. This is the tools. I mean, I don't even know what this is called. It's a menu for the 3D panel. Over here you have your properties, which is going to show you all the things in the 3D viewport. This is the editor panel, I think it's called. Yeah, it's got a bunch of important stuff. Yeah. Alright, yeah. So let's talk about the 3D viewport. So the first thing is navigation of the 3D viewport. So magical. To rotate your view, you're going to click down the middle mouse button, the scroll wheel, and you're going to move the mouse around. You notice that if you move your mouse past the edge, it'll go infinite scroll, back onto the other side. That's new as of Blender 2.7. Excuse me. So that's how to rotate it, but the next thing is you hold down Shift, and you do the same thing. You hold down the the middle mouse button, and it'll pan. Yeah. Alright, that's basically all. Also, you scroll in and out to zoom in and out, obviously. Okay. And then you press right click to select objects, right? If you hold and then move your mouse, it's going to move the object. You can either left click to confirm where you want to moving it to that point, or you can press right click again to move it back to where it was. Alright, so yeah, the next thing I'm gonna go over is the basic functions. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we got our cube here. So you can see we got these little arrow thingies. So you can move it, right? This is the green one's the y-axis, the red one is the x-axis, and the blue one, excuse me, is the z-axis. You can see these in the little corner right here. And so yeah, so you can either move stuff by clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging some more, or you can press G on your keyboard. Now Blender has an insane amount of shortcuts, so you're probably gonna want to remember all of them. But yeah, you're probably gonna want to eventually start using shortcuts instead of dragging the little thingies. It's a lot more convenient. At first it seems like it isn't, but it's kind of is. And this is why. So you can move it around, right? You can click to left click to confirm the placement. Control Z to undo, as with many programs. So yeah, so we can press G to grab selected object, and then we can press X to move it along the x-axis, and right click to bring it back to the center, or press G to grab, and then Y on the y-axis. Same thing for the z-axis. Press G and then press Z to go on the z-axis. Pretty straightforward. The next thing is that when you grab and then you select an axis, you can go on your number pad and type in a value. Let's say 4. It moves up 4 units. There's no real bench, I guess, for these units. You can change it so that it makes it meters or yards in the sum menu. I don't know which one. But yeah. Okay, so that's how to move it, right? The next thing is going to be rotation. Now, you got these little gizmo thingies for movement. I mean, for grabbing and moving the object. But to change it to rotation, you're going to go down to this little menu right here and click the little curvy looking one, and this is a rotation. So obviously if you grab the red one, it's going to rotate on the x-axis, green one y-axis, and blue one's the axis, obvious. And then the shortcut for that on your keyboard is R. Now obviously you can't really do this without selecting an axis. So we're going to press x-axis, I guess, and you know it's rotating. You can eyeball the value, or you can press, let's say, 45 degrees, and yeah, and then you can press enter or left click, whatever. Control Z to undo that. Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? And then the last one is going to be scaling. You can press S on the keyboard to scale, or you can, you know, get this last one, the little thingy with the diamond, you know, square thingy. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. You grab these, and or you can press G, I mean, not G, excuse me. You can press S and then whatever axis, and then you can enter a value also. You can press S and just press like 5, so it's 5 times the original size, something like that, right? Alright, so the next thing I want to go over is kind of not related to what I've just been doing. Alright, also if you want to turn off the thingies, and then you want to turn off these thingies, you can just click that, but I'll just leave them there for now. Alright, alright, well I'll just go over this next. The little crosshair looking thing in the center of the screen is moved by left clicking. It's called the 3D cursor, and now, you know, it goes wherever. You return it to the center, or the origin, if you will do maths. Just kidding. Shift C to return it to the center. Now, that'll be important. Oh yeah, it also centers your, actually no it doesn't, never mind. That's important because when you create objects, which I will show you in a second, they're gonna be created not on the origin but on the 3D cursor. So Shift C to return that. There's also some way to do it in some menu, which I actually do not know. Actually, yeah, there is. This menu over here. You can press N to open, or press the little plus sign. You can go 3D cursor, select its location. You know, 0, 0, 0. That's kind of off track. Also, to open and close this menu over here, it's T, or you can little click that. Yeah. What do I want to go over next? Let's create an object. So to delete an object first, you can press delete on your keyboard, obviously. Delete, and then you can click, and now it's deleted. You can see it no longer is here in the properties panel. Control Z to undo that, I guess. You can also press X and then click delete, which works too. So yeah, once you got, let's say we don't have anything, right? So to create a new object, you can either go down here and find your object that you need, or you can come over here and find the object you need, or you can do neither of those and press Shift A on your keyboard and maybe create it that way. So yeah, you got your meshes: plane, cube, circle, sphere, icosphere, which I don't even know why it exists, a cylinder and cone, and then a bunch of random shapes, grid, manky. Yeah. And then there's some other stuff. So yeah, you know, we're gonna just create another cube, and then delete it, and then move the 3D cursor and create another cube by pressing Shift A. Actually, that's a sphere, but who cares? And then I'm gonna delete it, and then you can press Shift C to bring it back to the center. Now your objects will be created in the origin again. And so yeah, what do I want to say next? Oh yeah, okay, here. We're gonna add a cube, because that's a very basic object, obviously. So let's say you move your cube, and it's over there, and now you can go panning over here by using the shift and middle mouse, and you know, this, and it's annoying. Or you like, let's say you're over here and you can't see it, but you know you have it selected. So what you can do is press on your number pad, the delete key on the number pad, not the regular delete key, and it will center your view to your selected object. Now the problem is with laptops, you obviously can't do that. Also, you need an actual mouse to do Blender. Also helps if you have a full-size keyboard with the number pad. Control Z to undo that again. Alright, so you'll notice we have two other objects in said 3D viewport, including a camera. So interesting. So looking like a camera. And a lamp, which lights things. Obviously. All right, let's just look at this for a second. So you got your camera. You go over into this menu. Sorry, this menu over here in the whatever you want to call this magical panel. And there's your lamp. Energy is obviously how bright it is. Scale of 1 to 10 for this. You can click and select a value, and your preview is right here of how bright that is. Or you can click and drag left or right. Well, let's keep it at like 7 or something right now. Also, this little white thingy is not just there to ponder upon. It's so that you can click on it and change the value. So we got different ways of selecting colors by red, blue, and green, changing those. You can also just obviously click and move that around. This is like some, what is this? The hue, I think. This is, what is this? I don't even know what this is. It's something. And then a hex color, which you use for like websites. Anyways, this is the brightness slider. Obviously, if you change that and then move it around, you know, you can get all your colors that you need. Also, right now we're changing the color of the light. Well, wouldn't you want to see what the color of the light looks like? Well, it is like purplish pink right now. And how do we see that? Well, we're going to see it through the camera in a second. And this is how. Press 0, but we don't know what our light looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to render this picture by pressing F12, or you can press render right here. F12's faster though. And we have a pink cube, not because the cube is pink, but because the light is pink. You must keep that in mind. Let's bring our light back to a white. Oops. Alright, and we render that again, and now our cube is white, obviously. So, I did not tell you how I did that, how you look through your camera. It is 0 on your number pad. Yeah. So we're looking through our camera. If we scroll, it doesn't move the camera. If we move, we just get bumped out of the camera's view. and maybe you want to look at this epic cube from a different angle. So what you're going to do is press N, go into this menu over here, and click lock camera to view, and you can see this little red dotted line around said window, whatever. And now if I scroll, it moves the camera. And now if I rotate, it rotates the camera. So yeah. And if I pan, the camera moves. It's mystical, isn't it? Alright, enough of that. Okay. So, when I pressed F12, it rendered an image. Now, your settings for your image, said image render, whatever you want to call it, is over here. So, obviously, the HD 1920 by 1080. Right now it's rendering 50% of that, so if you divide 1920, divide that by 2, that was what the picture actually was. And then you also divide this by 2. So that's 540? No. Whatever that is by 540. But see now it's actually full 920 by 1080. But yeah. But you'd be like, I just want my picture in high definition, so I'll just crank this up to 100%. Well, if you're working on something, you may not want to keep it that high, because when you have higher quality objects and lighting in your scene, it's going to take a long time to render a high resolution picture. So that's why you keep it at, 50% of whatever you want. Or you can just make it 1280 by 720, which is the 720p resolution. Alright, so next thing is frames. This is going to have to do with animating. Now you can see down here in this thing called the timeline where our frames are going from 1 to 250. Ain't that interesting? Yeah, you can change the value. Frame step is kind of annoying if you accidentally mess this up, because I did once. So what the frame step does is like frame step of 1 means it renders frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. When the frame step is 2, it's gonna render 1, 3, and then, well, yeah, you're just gonna keep adding 2, so it's gonna be 1, 3, 5, 7, etc., etc., which is going to be annoying. So yeah, usually you'd want to keep it at 1, unless you're unless you animated it at a higher frame rate. I don't need to explain that right now. So here's a frame rate. Obviously, you should know what a frame rate is. Maybe 60 frames. Custom value of like 4,000. Wait a second. What? 120 is the max value? Is it really? Alright, I guess the max value is 120, but default's 24. It's gonna come into play when you're animating. Also, if you're doing video editing, you have to match that to whatever your footage is. That's why I don't really use this for video editing. I have before, but it's really a hassle. Anyways, so I actually don't know what this is. Motion blur is motion blur. So when an object's moving fast, it'll blur a little. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Shading is, I don't even know. Performance, you'll get into later. I'll do some stuff on that. Performance changes a lot when instead of using the Blender render, you're using Cycles render. So notice if I render it in Cycles render, it's going to look a lot different. That is because the lighting, the way it does its magical coding computer stuffs in Cycles is a lot more accurate to real world than Blender render is. Obviously. You also notice that there's a lot more options, like instead of using your processor to compute what the picture is doing, you can use your graphics card which is going to do render a lot faster. But for now, Blender's render is a lot more simple. They haven't changed Blender render since a couple years ago, and like they quit making changes to it. They only make changes to the cycles render. And Blender render, though, it's a lot simpler to learn about materials and such objects with Blender render. Yeah. Alright, so obviously the output is pretty straightforward. You can click this, or you can type it in to select whatever output folder you want. Yeah, you got your folders. You type in the name in this bar, and yeah, that what your F12 function would save to. Obviously, right now it's going to the temporary folder, so it'll be deleted in time. All right, so then you got your file type. You got, BMP, JPEG, PNGs, whatever. That's like when, right there's a PNG. But you can change that. You can also technically render one single picture as a movie, but that would make no sense of doing. But yeah, when you have an animation, most people, they recommend to make something called a image sequence, which you may or may not know what it is. But if you don't, what an image sequence is pretty much every single frame, but in pictures instead of already in a video. So then you take those pictures and you put them in some editor. You can use Blender's editor, you can use Adobe Premiere, whatever. You can use Windows Movie Maker. Psych. You actually can. You can use whatever. But then you can convert it into movie. So for movie formats, we got H.264, which is the MP4 format. MPEG, AVIs, whatever. Yeah. We also got color depth of 8 or 16 bits. Yeah. And then right here is black white. It's gonna pick out only these colors, black and white, red, green, and blue, or red, green, blue, and alpha, which alpha is the magical substance. Just kidding. So let's say we change our camera's color. We change our. Well, let's move this camera a little bit this way. Let's move this to right here. Let's change the color of it so you can actually see what I'm about to show you. Like, let's say red, reddish, whatever. So black and white. Didn't change it. Wait, is that really black and white? Supposedly grayscale, but it's I didn't even know. Red, green, blue. In most cases, you're probably gonna use red, green, blue, alpha. Yeah. I think that's mostly it for the basic. No, it isn't. I got 2 more topics to cover. This thing down here is, wait, did I already talk to you about this? I think I did, but, it's a timeline. You'll learn about it if you do animation. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it very much. Actually, I'm not going to at all. So the last thing I want to cover is layers. Kind of like Photoshop layers, kind of not. So these little grid thingy just down here. You got dot right there because it says there's stuff on it. The dot is orange because I have something on this layer that is selected. I go to the next one, layer number 2, and there's nothing on it. because it's kind of like how Photoshop layers work. So like you want to edit something separately from the rest of your 3D scene, you'd go here, you'd like move it to a different layer. Now, how would you move it to that layer, you ask? Well, what you're going to want to do is just have your object selected and press M and click whatever layer you want it on. And notice it's gray. The little dot is gray because there's still objects here, but the object I have actively selected is on the next layer. Now, you can either just click on these, which I do, or you can use your numbers, not on the number pad, but the ones on the above the keyboard, the standard numbers. And if you press the thing next to the one button, the key next to the one button, I forgot what it's called, you click that and it selects all your layers. So if you have something really complex that's on a bunch of layers, you just press that and it'll bring up all your layers. Or you can hit shift and then click and it'll select your layers. You know, you can make your little Tetris patterns. Alright, enough of that. Let's move this back. Press M, select the first layer. Yeah. Alright. Last thing I guess I'm going to want to say is here's the different modes. Object, edit, sculpt, vertex, paint. I'm going to cover edit mode in my next tutorial. And good luck learning Blender. See you in the next tutorial.